Greetings, everyone in Lukman Nation. How are you? Happy Friday. Welcome to this Friday episode of People's Power Hour in Lukman Nation with me, the People's Prophetess, Jacquie Lukman. Thank you so much for spending your Friday with me. And as you could tell from the title of tonight's show, I'm not going to get into a whole lot of serious stuff for most of the show because I was tired, y'all. I was tired. It's been a hell of a week. A lot of um, medical stuff. I've got a lot of medical appointments, procedures coming up in the next couple of months, actually. And this week was really crazy. I had to go back and forth to the clinic every day in between the break to get a partial dialysis treatment so I could be administered antibiotics because somehow I got an infection, a blood infection. Don't know how it happened. I was careless about something. Don't know what it was. Can't figure it out. But it's cleared up now. Whew, so that's done. But yeah, it's been a heck of a week. And, the work has gone on, the show has gone on, organizing has gone on in between or around all of that. So here we are at Friday, and woo, I'm so glad we made it. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you Wine, our special guest? Mm, woo, that's lovely. I hope you all are having a good Friday. I hope you are relaxing this Friday because that really is what I want to do tonight. I want to have a little fun. I want to joke around a little bit. I want to tell some stories, perhaps. Uh, Reminisce a little bit because I have been kind of reminiscing about things for really odd reasons. It's funny, the Remix Morning Show causes me to think of so many things that happened in my past that I didn't forget. I just haven't thought about them in so long. And then when I think about them, I realize, wow, that was kind of was kind of momentous and maybe had a bigger impact on who I am now than I thought. But we'll get to that in a moment. Until let's see, up to what are you guys doing in the chat? Let's see who's in the chat. How you doing, Lisa Catlett, Eric Berkeley, James, Leah Boggs, Gannibal 21st C, the Jamam 93, Ricky Ryan. So glad to see y'all. Happy to see you. And the rest of you who are lurking in the background, not showing who you are, thank you very much for watching. If you're watching on Black Power Media, you are watching Lukman Nation, the most dangerous platform on the most dangerous show on social media, on Black Power Media, the most dangerous platform on social media. And we appreciate you. Please support Black Power Media by subscribing. Click on the notification bell to make sure you get alerted whenever any content is added to this channel. You don't want to miss all of the amazing content that we have. If you're watching in Lukman Nation on YouTube, thank you so much. You can support Black Power Media and Lukman Nation. I know, hard to choose, but it's up to you. On patreon.com/ either Black Power Media or Lukman Nation, LUKMANNATION. We appreciate all of the support. Leah, you know what? Tell them people that you need to go, that you have more important things to do. And it's Friday. This ain't the plantation, okay? And tell them I said so. Oh, Ariana Gladney, good to see you. The Oracle at Delphi. Hey there, yourself. All right, before we get to the goofy stuff, I really do want to start with something very serious. And this is so incredibly exciting to me. I can't contain myself. I try to make it a practice of scanning the news before I leave the studio, before I leave work, because you never know what's going to happen. And sure enough, doggone it, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and Mali juntas, the governments of these countries, plan a three-way partnership. Y'all, these three men are not the leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea. They are representatives of ECOWAS, and we'll talk about ECOWAS in a minute, not pleasantly either. But Reuters reports that the foreign ministers of Burkina Faso, Guinea, and Mali are all ruled by military juntas. You notice how the West says military juntas when there is a military takeover of a government that they don't like, but when it's a military takeover of a government that they support, then it's just a military government. Yeah, okay. They have proposed a regional partnership to facilitate trade and tackle insecurity in the region. They issued a joint statement on Thursday. They did this because all the countries were frustrated about the previous governments in each of the countries' ability to protect civilians from terrorism in the country, that I have said plenty of times before. And if you have paid any attention to all of the information coming out of the Black Alliance for Peace, the expansion of AFRICOM has made terrorism worse, has increased terrorism on the continent of Africa by over 1,000% since 2001. And they have also been suffering under economic sanctions and terrible relations with other countries in the region and their Western allies. Really sick and tired of their neo-colonial, former colonial masters. So that's what it really is. So Western allies is that's a misnomer. They're calling it the Bamako-Conakry-Ouagadougou link, or at least Reuters is. I'm not sure if that's what the formation will be called. Will be a basis for fuel and electricity exchanges, transport links, cooperation on mineral resource extraction, rural development, and trade. It will mobilize resources for a railway network linking the three capitals and centralize the fight against insecurity, adding that Burkina Faso's interim president Ibrahim Traoré had asked his government to enact the plan. Scroll on down a little bit. Now let's talk about ECOWAS. All three countries were suspended from ECOWAS and the African Union because they were at odds with West Africa's main economic and regional bloc, which is ECOWAS, over transition timelines, transitioning their governments from a military government to a civilian government. If countries have the right to exercise sovereignty and people have the right to exercise their self-determination, then nobody should be able to tell them, other than the people in those countries, when their governments transition from one phase to another. If the people in these countries, in Burkina Faso and Mali and Guinea, if they're happy with the governments being led by these military collaborations at the moment, then leave them people alone. And no one has a right to tell them otherwise, not the West, not France, not US, not ECOWAS, not the African Union. ECOWAS also imposed sanctions on Guinea and Mali for dragging their feet on restoring constitutional order. This means getting rid of the military governments and moving to a civilian government, which the sanctions will only be lifted if ultimatums set last year are respected. And the ultimatum part of that was to, end the military government and to institute new elections, which, interestingly enough, when you think about it, y'all, I'm sorry. Let me tell you what ECOWAS is, what it stands for. Economic Community of West African States. That's what ECOWAS stands for. That's what it is. So let me tell you my thoughts on this whole rushing these countries' governments to get rid of the military governments and institute civilian governments. I think because ECOWAS and the African Union are full of comprador leaders that are very much in cahoots with the West, they didn't want this to happen. So think about it, right? If these governments had done what ECOWAS told them to do last year, this union wouldn't have come to pass. It wouldn't have happened. So I think that ECOWAS and the African Union saw the possibility of this happening. I'm pretty sure that this was not something that the leaders of these countries were like, they just woke up this morning and like, you know what? I'm gonna call my brother over in Ouagadougou. I'm gonna call my brother in Burkina Faso. And we're gonna. Hey, I think this is a good idea. I think this has been the discussion for quite some time since these military governments ousted the former Western supported governments and kicked the French out of their countries late last year, early this year. And no, in Yoma, this is the beginning. You didn't miss much, because I'm still talking about this Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso union that is cooking up and looks to be a done deal in Africa. So I think that had these countries rushed like ECOWAS and the African Union wanted them to do and transition to a civilian government, this union wouldn't have happened, because the West and the EU does not want a united Africa, plain and simple. So, yeah, very, very. Every time the African Union and the and ECOWAS issues any kind of statements, I'm just as suspicious of them as I am when the US or France or Germany talks about, Africa being former colonizers and current neo-colonial powers. But there's more. I think there's more to consider in this deal, in this union. So I think this is a little bit more about the relationship of these three countries with ECOWAS. Whoops, sorry, let me make sure you got that. So they're seeking re-entry. The Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso are seeking re-entry into ECOWAS. So the foreign ministers of these countries issued a joint statement that said that they agree to work together to push for the lifting of their suspensions from ECOWAS and the African Union. The three diplomats are here. This is the Burkina Faso foreign minister, Olivia Ruamba, in the center. And she is flanked by, let me make sure I get their names correct, Morisanda Kouyaté of Guinea and Abdoulaye Diop of Mali. Mounting insecurity in the Sahel region led the three ministers to agree to the need to combine their efforts and those of the countries of the sub-region and the region to deal with the scourge of terrorism. This is after, of course, we know that Mali had fallen out with France, kicked them out, its former colonial masters. And here, Al Jazeera calls their former colonial masters a traditional ally. I'm sorry, the people who enslaved you can't be your ally. That's France is Mali's new neo-colonial master. Well, not new, but neo-colonial master. That's what that relationship is. And Mali got tired of it. And they turned to closer ties with Russia instead, which of course is pissing off France. It's pissing off the US. It's pissing off the African Union and ECOWAS, and Mali and Burkina Faso and Guinea don't care. So the coup in Guinea had different causes from the coups in Mali and Burkina Faso. Mali and Burkina Faso, those former regimes were kicked out because of the anger of the people at the army led by the French military. The coup in Guinea was the result of public anger against the former president, Alpha Conde, who was becoming an authoritarian monster. So the diplomats talked about the sanctions from ECOWAS, which I think the European Union imposes sanctions on African nations in West Africa through ECOWAS. So ECOWAS is the enforcement arm, the economic enforcement arm for sanctions that come from the West. Yeah. The diplomat said that the sanctions imposed by ECOWAS and the AU affect populations already battered by insecurity and political instability, deprive ECOWAS and the AU of the contribution of the three countries needed to meet the major challenges, and undermine sub-regional and African solidarity, which is what they want, which is absolutely what the West wants and what ECOWAS and the African Union are helping the West do. Sergei Lavrov visited Bamako on Tuesday, paid tribute to the forged deal between the two countries. He said the Kremlin is willing to provide the countries with further support. The fight against terrorism is, of course, an issue for the other countries in the region, Lavrov said. He said further that we're going to provide our assistance to them to overcome these difficulties. This concerns Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Chad, and the Sahel region generally, and even the coastal states of the Gulf of Guinea. Woo! Seizing power in 2020, Mali's military government has brought in Russian planes, helicopters, and paramilitaries, personnel that France says are Wagner mercenaries. Of course they would, but, you know, I don't see how it's any different from U.S. military consultants being on the ground in countries where you know damn well they are planning a coup, right? So I think there's a little bit of something about that on this other article I have here. Let me see. There was just so much good stuff on this that I had to make sure I collected as much of it as I could before I left the studio, because it's very exciting. This is from, and this print is kind of small, so I'm going to magnify the view for you a little bit. There you go. These bays now, they are bay. I know I'm a little bit too old to be saying stuff like that, but you know. Okay, so this is Africa from Africa News. They're talking about this union as well, and way down in the article, this is the thing that caught my eye. Western countries have accused Mali of hosting mercenaries from the Russian group Wagner, which Bamako denies, acknowledging the sole presence of Russian instructors. Isn't that what the U.S. calls, and the U.S., Germany, France, isn't that what they call their military contractors when they send them to foreign countries? Isn't that what they call them? Don't they call them instructors? So why can't Mali call Russian whatever? Why can't they call them instructors too? Burkina Faso's Captain Traore also denied the presence of Wagner mercenaries in Burkina because it's nobody else's damn business, saying that our Wagner are the VDP, Volunteers for the Defense of the Fatherland, the civilian auxiliaries of the army. Bam! Stay out our business. I know. Very exciting. Very, very exciting. And then I found this, just kind of digging around. And I thought I had learned this at some point, and I couldn't remember the details of it, but I'm so glad I found this article. This is from, let me get the source for you, Ghana Web, and this person, Kwesi Pratt Jr., says that during the time of Kwame Nkrumah's reign, Guinea, Ghana, and Mali used to be one country. He said that Nkrumah later brought in Congo after agreement with Patrice Lumumba to form the Union of African States. Kwesi Pratt Jr. is the managing editor of Insight newspaper, and he made these comments during an interview. He said that before Nkrumah was overthrown, he signed an agreement with these countries, including Congo, for the beginning of the Union of African States. He said that before the February 24th, 1966 coup, Guinea, Ghana, and Mali were one country. In fact, under the auspices of Modibo Keita, Sekou Touré, and Kwame Nkrumah, had established a Ghana, Guinea, and Mali union. Just before Nkrumah was overthrown, Nkrumah had signed an agreement with Patrice Lumumba of the Congo to extend the union to have Ghana, Guinea, Mali, and Congo in the union as the beginning of the establishment of the Union of African States. So he went on to say, when we as Ghanaians discuss the development in Congo, we are talking about our own brothers and sisters. We're talking about a country in which Kwame Nkrumah was the president. A lot of people don't just also know that Kwame Nkrumah was not just president of Ghana, that after the 1966 coup, he was properly elected by the Ghanaian parliament as co-president of Guinea. So he died as the president of Guinea. So I'm not talking about some people who were far removed from us and so on. I'm completely talking about our own African brothers and sisters whom we try to forge a union of African states. Let me drop this in the chat for you because you need this, probably more than you need the others. Definitely more than you need the others. And this is important to us here in the domestic colonies of the United States of America. I have to practice not saying United Snakes because, as my comrade Rafiki Morris said, that's snakes have done nothing like the U.S. empire have done. Snakes are innocent in this conversation of imperialism and the neo-colonialism of the continent. So I try not to say United Snakes. Snakes are much more honorable than imperialists. But this is important to those of us in the domestic colonies in the United States because we're African too. And I don't care what anybody says about we have nothing in common with those people in Africa. The fact that the government of this country in which we reside, and we are under the control and oppression of the literal beating heart of imperialism that is affecting people in the continent to the degree that African leaders who in the 60s liberated their people from European colonizers took steps toward creating a one united Africa in the process and were deposed or assassinated to keep them from doing that. If people want to continue to believe that we are not connected by DNA by Africans, just the fact that this government in the country that we live in is responsible for the continued destabilization of the African continent and the destruction of the facilitation of the bonds of kinship between peoples, among peoples on the continent, that's the connection. You can't deny that, although I know people will. This government that takes our money, and I don't want to hear any discussions about MMT, but this government that takes our money, demands our votes, and does with it what this brother just explained was done on the continent of Africa. So what is happening now is a reattempt at what imperialists destroyed in the 60s. So it is our responsibility because our government, this government, I'm sorry, not our government, the imperialist government of this country that we live in, it is our responsibility to support countries that defy this imperialist government. That's our responsibility because we live inside the beating heart of imperialism. If people don't want to be connected by DNA to Africans, fine, cool, continue on with your delusion. But your residence signifies your complicity to some degree in the oppression of people around the world. It's our responsibility to end that shit. That's why this is important. And for those people who say that Pan-Africanism is dead, oh, I think the governments of Guinea, Mali, and Burkina Faso would beg to differ. I am hoping, and I'm going to keep watch on this to see if it expands, because I think Mac Daddy Sergey Lavrov kind of hinted that there could be an expansion of other countries into this trilateral agreement between countries. I think he gave a little bit of a clue that it could expand, and I'm hoping that it does. But this is enormous. What we are witnessing as we are simultaneously seeing a resurgent pink tide in the Americas, in the global South, with the election of progressive governments. And I think we need to explain that the pink tide is like an intermediary step um, in between a neoliberal right-wing government that's aligned with Western imperialist powers and a socialist communist government. So instead of white and red, you've got pink in the middle. So it's progressive, but it might not be socialist yet, but it's that intermediary step to a socialist government. So at the same time, we're seeing this pink tide um, with some of the governments that are winning elections, having very strong socialist policies, even though they may not be fully communist or socialist committed, stated, publicly stated socialist or communist in their ideology. They have a lot of aspects of some forms of socialism to some degree, and that's very good. At the same time, we're seeing this pink tide in the Americas. I'm seeing this new African Union emerging as a part of the birth of a new multipolar world order, where the US and Western imperialist governments, the governments of the G7, the Gang of Seven, the Western imperialist allies who are friends of the US, which is the mob boss of them all, are moving away from the US dollar, US hegemony, and allegiance and alliance with the US. So I believe the Americas is moving us toward multipolarity. Asian countries moving us toward multipolarity, and now we see African nations moving as well. Absolutely, Ricky Ryan, we are moving. We moving away from the imperialist world order. And I must warn, as exciting as this is, and I believe that these leaders of these African governments are not unaware of the danger, that the grave danger that they have now put themselves personally in. But if they are the students of history that they seem to be, the sacrifice is necessary for liberation if it comes to that. And they don't seem to me to be afraid of signing up for the sacrifice. So, I don't know what else to say about that, but I'm thinking that somebody else can say something about it a lot better than I could. I know they're going to take this out. They're going to take this out when it airs, but I figure we enjoy it for a minute for now. Come on now. Ignorant action, wrong education, wrong information, white supremacy, built on yes, it is. Western civilization, built on ignorance. Them say I get killed. Woo! I've been listening to Fela Kuti all day. Really. So that's the serious political stuff. Let me see what y'all got to say in the chat. Absolutely. Good to see you, Easy D. It is multipolarity presents a more fair system for all people, except for the Bamas who don't want it to happen. And who cares about them? Thank you, Daryl Waistline Mitchell. I try to stay on point. States of Africa blocking with Russia and China, key to breaking out of empire, America's dollar hegemony, and attempts to destroy the people of Africa and us at home. Absolutely, absolutely. Let me go up because I saw some really nice stuff that you all were saying up here. Oh, that's right. I saw that too right before I left. Look here. These people in this country, they wilding out. They shooting down weather balloons, kites, birds. They don't all drumming up this fear mongering that those sneaky Chinese are sending all kinds of spy objects over here to spy on us. It is really just a part of this government's playbook in how to drum up, how to manufacture consent for war against fill in the blank. Because this is exactly what they did before they did what they did in Ukraine against Russia. They created a bunch of lies out of whole cloth. Russia is amassing troops on the border of Ukraine. Russia was mobilizing their troops inside their own country because Ukraine and the countries on the border of Russia were carrying out ever larger and ever longer military exercises with NATO forces. Mm-hmm. They didn't tell you about that part. That's and these people, y'all, don't ever do anything different. I worked with John Kiriakou, the whistleblower, ex-CIA whistleblower, who said that the CIA literally has like notebooks with plans, like steps, and they might as well call the notebooks how to carry out a coup, how to plot a coup. So I do not doubt that they have notebooks on how to manufacture consent for war with fill in the blank of the country they want to manufacture consent for war against. Oh, Salafu Mac, good to see you, my brother Salifu. Thank you for hopping in. Inshallah, may it be so. Allah, please let this happen. One united Africa under scientific socialism. Let us see it in our lifetime. Woo, indeed. Okay. Oh, this is an interesting. This is a comment. Here we go. Let me see. Vicky Alex, thanks so much for joining me. If you would read the article that I wrote in Black Agenda Report about the rally, you will understand the criticism about the rally very well. If you do not know where to find the article, if you don't want to go back and listen to the last show I did about the article, about the rally, rather, and I did talk about the rally and all of the reasons that the rally is problematic because of the political party that is hosting it. There is the article that I'm always honored to be published in Black Agenda Report. Basically, everything I said in the show I did last week about this rally, I put it in the article with a little bit more context. The basic idea is that people like us who have been fighting against imperialist war all our lives, and we have been fighting against every imperialist war, particularly on the continent of Africa, particularly in the Americas, that have, particularly against Haiti, that have taken the lives of our people who look like us. We've been fighting imperialist war all this time, many of us for decades, and we've never seen a whole lot of support, engagement, with a lot of the white anti-war left. And then when this rally comes along, and everybody is all of the white people are so very concerned about the war in Ukraine because it's white people who are in the crosshairs. It's Europeans who are in the crosshairs. Because otherwise, people in this country don't give a damn about Africans who have been bombed, Somalians, they don't care. That people in this country don't care about Yemenis, Sudanese. They don't care about Palestinians. They don't care. But let some Europeans get a taste of some imperialism that the U.S. the U.S. and NATO has been handing out to the rest of the black and brown world. Oh my God, it's a crisis that we all have to. That's one part of it. And then the other part of it is that the political party that is organizing this rally is a right-wing fascist party. The Libertarian Party has always had problems. First of all, they're capitalists, and they love private property, so they're never going to be anti-capitalists. But the people who have taken over the Libertarian Party are quite honestly racists and fascists, and they don't deny it. They're transphobes and homophobes. So people like us who organize against imperialism have all our lives. What do we gain from organizing with people who, in every other context, would see us oppressed just like the people who are oppressing us are already doing? Particularly since these people are courting right-wing voters to grow their party. They're not coming to anti-war, anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist organizers who have been doing this, who have been against imperialism and against war and have been having rallies all over the place. I actually forgot that in February of 22, before Russia's special military action in Ukraine, I attended and participated in 2 rallies for 2 different organizations against the prospect of a war in Ukraine. It hadn't even happened yet, but we saw it coming because, see, we were talking about this since 2014. And in the anti-imperialist circles, when the Obama administration, yeah, we've been talking about this thing was coming. And did the white left listen to us? No, because they don't. They don't. So now that it has come to pass, and yes, it is extremely concerning. The nuclear threat, I think, is real, but please understand the nuclear threat is coming from NATO. The nuclear threat is coming from NATO saying that we can use tactical nukes against Russia. And here we are, actual anti-imperialists who have been talking about the dangers, the evil of NATO for decades. Yeah, white folks in this country was like, yeah, okay, that's nice. Now all of a sudden the white folks getting their ass kicked by NATO. Oh my God, we've got to stop this. We've got to unite with everyone we can to stop this. Interestingly enough, the unite with everyone we can doesn't ever include us. But some right-wing reactionary outfit comes along and we are supposed to hop on their bandwagon. When every other day of the year, other than the day of their rally, they talking about 1,000 trans people should be killed as long as it doesn't raise our taxes in order for a more ethical country. And America doesn't owe Black people anything. It's the other way around, because Black people get free access to essential drugs and education and jobs. That came from the Libertarian Party that's organizing this rally. You mean to tell me I'm supposed to organize with people who want to do that to me and people I organize with every other day of the year? And just get the heck, no. So that, I hope, helps explain my opposition to this rally. It's not the rally, it's the people who organized it and their ideology and their politics and what that ideology and politics means for people like me and my queer friends and my trans friends and my indigenous friends every other day of the year. So there's that. And you know, the idea about, oh, we're dividing the movement is already divided, ma'am. It's already divided because, like I said, unless you missed it, and this is the kind of thing that white people do, that it's a form of gaslighting that we need to just call it what it is. We point out that a certain group of white people have ideology and politics that are dangerous to people like us and people that we organize with, our comrades, people who we're organizing with and for people-centered human rights for all people. And we tell folks, these folks over here are right-wing racist reactionaries who they're wolves in sheep's clothing. They are talking really good talk, but they say things that we will agree with, but we don't look at their reason for doing it. We don't look at their motivation. Their motivation is different from ours. They want to stop nuclear war. Okay, fine, that's great. We all do. But if all of us will die in nuclear war, then how come you can't organize with all of us? How come you coming on my show asking me why I don't like these racists who, by the way, had on their platform, of their speaker's platform, people who were accused of all kinds of sexual impropriety and were open transphobes? You gonna come on my show and ask me why I don't like those people and talk about we creating division, but they're the ones breathing hatred and bigotry against us. That's gaslighting. It's gaslighting. It's racist. And you can't make me feel bad. You cannot make us feel bad for not wanting to organize with people who every other day wants to kill us. Or if they don't want to actively kill us, they wouldn't mind if we suddenly disappeared in some other fashion. So whatever, man. And as far as other organizations, other rallies are concerned, if you were plugged into actual anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, people-centered, human rights-focused organization, you would know there have been plenty of anti-war rallies. Plenty. Before and since this one. And there are going to be some more. And none of them are going to be involved reactionary, racist white people. So there you go. All right. Vicky, there is never a reason for anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, people-centered human rights, working class, poor, and oppressed colonized people to organize with people who want to continue to oppress them on every other day of the week. I don't know how much more clear to make that. Certainly we can struggle among our class with people who have backward ideas. Certainly we can do that. And that there's a necessity to do that. But what we don't do is organize with or make allegiances or be in coalition with organizations that are led by people and have an entire platform that includes the oppression of other people. That's what we don't do. Sure, I will absolutely talk about anti-capitalism and anti-imperialism and white supremacy with people who voted for Trump. Yep, I will. And some of those people will get it, and the ones who don't, they can go on about their business. We absolutely have to struggle with our class, but here's what we need to understand. We need to make a demand of people who we do struggle with within our class, that if they have these backward ideas, these inhumane, these anti-people, anti-human, bigoted, racist, sexist, transphobic, homophobic ideas, we have to make a demand of people that they repudiate that shit. Because that's what, and this is an example, I said it in my article, I said it on the show last week, I'm going to say it again. This is what Fred Hampton did with the Black Panther Party and the original Rainbow Coalition. It wasn't just that they got together and organized with a bunch of racist white people and that was it. Yay, this is an example of us organizing with racist white people. No. Fred Hampton demanded of those members of the Young Patriots, the white organization, that if they had racist ideas, they needed to struggle with those ideas and get rid of them if they wanted to be in that coalition. That was the demand. Because what sense would it have made for Fred Hampton to have put those working class, poor and oppressed Black, Latino, and the non-racist poor white people in coalition with people who hated them and didn't want to struggle for their human rights? So sure, we have to struggle within our class when we are organizing among our class, among people who, yeah, will have some truly messed up ideas, but that's individuals. We're talking about outreach now. We're talking about political education now. What we're not talking about is hopping on the bandwagon of a whole right-wing racist organization. That is a political party that is seeking to gain legitimacy and political clout and power by having some anti-warish personalities speak at their rally to give them legitimacy. I mean, they've already said that they are openly courting Trump voters. Come on, you think, oh, I've said enough. I said enough about it. I said enough. I've said enough. I've written enough. If people still don't understand it, please ask Jesus. Because I don't know how much clearer I can make it. I don't know. All right, then. Let me see what else y'all got to say. Thank you. Thank you, Born Center Cold. I love that. Born Center Cold World. Absolutely. Asians too. All right. Oh, wait, let me go up. So Sounds of Sane elsewhere said organizing is possible. No. Everybody doesn't have to agree on the same exact theory in order to organize together, but that doesn't mean that anti-war and imperialist activists should organize. Whew. Clear. All right. Alrighty. So, and I'm thank you. Whoops. Where did it go? I'm sorry, I missed the comment. But anyway, okay. On to more fun things. So, what was it? Tuesday or was it last week? Y'all, I don't even remember. The wine making me sweat. And it's hot in this room because the machines are back there. I can't remember what was it this week on the Remix Morning Show or last week on the Remix Morning Show. I found it funny that Ear Doctor and Kamau were shocked that groupie meant what it does. I was really kind of shocked that they did not know that groupie really did mean the thing that it means. And so it really got me to think about like that period in my life when I was the girlfriend of Fred Smith, a guitar player, and I was around a lot of bands and musicians, and because Fred was the guitar player for Beefeater here in DC. Um, and he also worked at the 930 Club. So the 930 Club was where any band that became anything played in DC. Um, so I thought about that time and all the concerts I went to, and I went to a lot of concerts. This is kind of why I don't trip over concerts now. I really don't, because I have done enough standing up and yelling and screaming and sweating and jumping into mosh pits and and all that kind of stuff. I've done enough of that. I've done enough. Um, had not been able to hear very well for 2 days afterward. Um, yeah, I've done enough of that. I've had probably 5 good years of that. Um, every Metallica concert that came through DC and Richmond. Um, a lot of punk concerts, a lot of punk concerts, a lot of metal concerts. And then so it struck me, and a lot of go-go, because the 930 Club was a really good place for me to take my high school age cousin to go-go shows. It was the only safe place in DC that we felt like he could be there, he could go to see go-go. So I was really happy when the 930 Club started having go-go bands, and it was great. So he would come and stay with me and Fred on the weekends, and we take him to work. It was always take your girlfriend to work weekend with me, with Fred. So we just brought my cousin to the 930 Club and we hang out. So he got to see all the backstage stuff and got to hang out with his friends at the go-go shows, and he got to see the punk environment too, because there were a couple of like triple headers where there were two punk bands and a go-go band, or two go-go bands and a punk band, and it was great. It was great. It was a great time for music in DC. And I mean, look, this is the truth. This is the truth. In some ways, I probably have not mellowed out in my taste in music, because I still really not only, but primarily listen to metal. Like when I drive to and from work, it's metal. It's metal or gospel. It's yeah. When I'm at home, chilling, I'll listen to some jazz. I'll listen to some Afro beats. But yeah, that's my taste in music hasn't mellowed out. But the individual, yeah, I can't do that stuff no more because I am tired. Um, but I thought about, but it got me to thinking about that period in my life, and I'm thinking about all of the shows that I went to see, just like, and some of them really really stand out because they were amazing. But what really did kind of stand out when I started thinking about some of these things was the whole groupie um I, phenomenon. I don't want to call it a culture. It was a phenomenon, and it was something that I don't think I was aware of when I was around it, because I wasn't paying attention to, because I've always been kind of oblivious to I'm not very observant of some things. I just don't pay attention to stuff that is not important or interesting, or that doesn't directly affect me. I've always been that way, and that really is kind of dangerous for a woman to be wandering around by herself like I did all the time. So it was really weird that I did that, and I was always so, ha, 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 la la la, I'm just going on about my happy punk way and not really paying any attention to, yeah, crazy stuff. But so I realized that I had always been around groupies, right? And once I recognized what happened, what it was like, and I was at um one of those big, it was a Monsters of Rock show, and Metallica was headlining, because I wouldn't have gone otherwise. And I had backstage passes because I worked at Tower Records. And that was the perk, one of the perks of working at Tower Records. That's why people worked at Tower Records, to tell you the truth. Um, Not because the pay was great, because it was minimum wage, um, but because um, one of the perks is free records and concert tickets and backstage passes. That was one of the perks. So I worked at Tower Records for 3 years. I got a lot of free tickets to shows, and just happened to get free tickets to Monsters of Rock. That was at RFK that year. And I got backstage passes. And my good friend and I at the time, um, she and I went. And so we're backstage. I mean, Monsters of Rock was a bit at RFK Stadium, was a former football stadium. Now it's a soccer stadium. Um, we were literally like almost against the barricade of the front, at the front of the stage, because we got there at like 6 a.m. And I think the show started at noon, and it was summertime. It was hot. It was hot. And then you had this sea of humanity pressing up against you. It was hot. People were passing out. And then, they're spraying the water hoses because the musicians are like, oh my God, the kids are passing out. And they are like plucking people out of the crowd and passing them up to the security to get them to the paramedics. So the firemen come and they're spraying the crowd. Yeah. So we survived that, me and my teeny tiny self, because I'm only 5'1". So people took pity on me, and my friend wasn't much taller than me. So people took pity on us, and they're like, no, get up to the front, get to the front. So we're up at the front, and we are just rocking out and having a great time. And I had almost forgotten about the backstage passes, but the roadie who, for one of the bands, it was not Metallica. I did not meet them at that show. I did end up meeting them later. But one of the roadies sees that we have backstage passes, and he tells security, those two, make sure they get. So we did. And I don't want to frame this in any way that disparages my then friend, because we ended up falling out, but it wasn't because of this. So I like, believe it or not, I've always been kind of modest in the way I present myself for no reason. Well, yeah, it was for a reason. I've always been self-conscious about my weight, my body, the fact that I'm dark skinned, short hair, all the anti-Black, misogynist indoctrination that we suffer really had really bad self-esteem and self-image problems. So I've always been I've never, even though, when I weighed a lot less, when I weighed 180 pounds, people are like, oh my God, you can stop traffic. You should wear this, that, and the third. And I'm like, never in life, because I thought I was fat. So my friend was about the same size as me, and I'm trying really hard not to make it sound terrible, because I don't want her or women who did this to be judged, because it's really nothing to judge, because honestly ain't nobody's damn business. But she was the exact opposite, and I didn't care. She was, she was cool. We hung out. So we get backstage, and I noticed that there are like women kind of lined up, like literally like you're waiting online for the bathroom. There were women lined up, and I'm thinking at first that it's the line for the bathroom. And my friend is like, okay, we have to go stand over here. I'm like, okay, because I really do have to pee. And she's like, this is not, you have to ask one of them where the bathroom is, but this is not the line for the bathroom. And I'm like, so what is it the line for? And then I look, And I noticed that it's all women, and they're all um dressed in a way to attract attention, right? So that's, I think, when it hit me. And then the whoever it was, one of the roadies, and there really are people, well, there were, I'm not sure if this is still done because, like I said, I don't do concerts no more, but it wouldn't surprise me if it is still done. There really were people who were signed, and there were always men who were assigned to picking the women to take into the dressing room or wherever. And I'm seeing this happening, and I'm just like, I remember feeling like, oh, it wasn't like I was disgusted. I wasn't like ashamed or embarrassed. I was just like, oh, well, that's interesting. Ah, so my friend is adjusting herself, pushing her girls up, and because she's trying to get chose, and I'm just like, okay, well, so I'm just really gonna go find the bath. And I literally just asked one of the other roadies, hey, is there a bathroom around here I can use? So he's like, yeah. So the band Faith No More was on the bill, right? And he said, yeah, but you're gonna have to go into one of the dressing rooms. And I don't think the guys will mind. So come with me. I'm like, yeah, cool. And he checks to make sure I have a backstage pass. And he's like, what are you? Are you press? Or and you write for a magazine? I'm like, no, I work for Tower Records. And he's like, oh, cool. So we're talking music, right? Because that's what I was there for. Um, and I just turned around and I just said, hey, I gotta let my friend know where I'm going. And he's like, yeah, cool. He said, oh, you're not gonna go with your friend? And I'm like, if what is happening is what I think is happening, no, I'm not gonna go with her. I just want to make sure that I'm here when she comes back, because we came together and I don't want to leave without her. And the look he gave me was like, wow, that's weird, but that's decent, But that's just kind of the person I've always been. Even when it wasn't reciprocal. And that's kind of why she and I fell out later on, a few years later. But anyway, so he takes me to the dressing room where Faith No More is. And these guys are just sitting there chilling out. There were no women in the dressing room. They were just hanging out, chilling out. And they had played the 930 Club a few months before. And my ex-boyfriend, Fred, introduced us, and we kind of hung out a little bit because at the time the Hard Rock Cafe had just opened up, like around the corner and down the street from the 930 Club. And it was the closest club to the 930 Club that was still open after the 930 Club closed. So a lot of the bands that played at the 930 Club and a lot of the staff of the club would end up at the Hard Rock. So we did. So I go into the dressing room and there they are, and they're like, "Hey, we remember you from the 930 Club." And I'm like, "Oh, dude, yeah, that's it." So I end up kind of hanging out with them for a little bit after I use the bathroom. And like after like 20 minutes, 30 minutes or whatever, I'm like, oh, I gotta go check on my friend. She's out there, blah, blah, blah. And one of the guys in the band said, yeah, don't worry about that. She's not gonna be back for a while if she, because they should be done by now. And she's gonna, I'm like, no, I really have to check on her. I'm like, yeah, cool, no problem. But come on back, because we're gonna roll, we're gonna go get some drinks. I'm like, all right, let me go see if I can get her. I go out, she's gone, so I know she was chose. And the whole time I was just like, okay, she's having fun. That's really how I looked at it. She's having fun. I just and I thought about it, and the more I thought about it, I was like, I just hope she's being safe. I hope she's not, like, my worst thought was, oh my God, I hope she's not doing a bunch of drugs, because because she could get down like that. She could, that was the thing I was concerned about with her, that she was just like, Jesus, I hope she's not, snorting some shit that is unidentifiable, because yeah, she would. But other than that, it was like, look, she's having fun her way. I'm having fun my way. We're all having fun. But, that's it. So it was really funny to me that, Kamal and Ear Doctor were like shocked. Oh my God, that's what groupies really are. They really do that. Yeah, they really do that. And it's not just women. It's not just women. Although there are not a lot of men that I've seen that, or, dudes, because people who, they're usually pretty young. Usually, not always, but usually pretty young. But yeah, I mean, there were guys who, the rare metal band that had a woman, like I remember White Zombie played the 930 Club, and you want to talk about a damn good show. Oh my God, I could not. White Zombie was amazing, but the coolest thing, the White Zombie show at the 930 Club. Okay, so here's the mystique of the 930 Club, other than it being the place where, any band that wanted to make its bones had to play in DC at one time. And I'm talking about any band. Nirvana played the 930 Club before they went big. Red Hot Chili Peppers played 930 before they went big. Living Color did. Yeah, a lot of bands did. The interior walls of the 930 Club, and it was not a big place at all. The interior walls of the 930 Club were painted semi-gloss black. And if a show was packed enough, and a lot of shows were, and if the activity of the fans was hype enough, the walls would sweat. And to me, that was just, I don't know why, that was just the coolest thing. And White Zombie was one of those shows where the walls sweated like a mug. I mean, I could not, I love White Zombie anyway. I could not believe they were as good as they were live. But the bass player of White Zombie was this gorgeous, gorgeous woman named Shawnee Salt. And she was, I think, dating Rob Zombie at the time. Gorgeous. And white women I don't, but her, man, gorgeous. And that show was the first time that I actually saw male groupies. And I don't know if anything happened there. I know that there were folks who were kind of hanging out after the show in the alleyway, right outside of the dressing room. The dressing rooms were downstairs, like underneath the stage almost. And you come out from the dressing room, come upstairs, go through the doors and out into the alley. And that's how the equipment would be loaded into and out of the space. And, dudes were like waiting in the back for Shawnee Salt to come out. And me and Fred and a couple of people from the club, after everybody cleaned up and locked up, we all went around to Hard Rock and, sitting at the bar drinking, and there the guys came too. Fred and I left before, everybody else left. It was a really cool night. It was a lot of fun. Rob Zombie was a cool dude. It was funny. He kept saying to me, my ex-boyfriend was probably one of the coolest people. Not a lot got to him. Rob Zombie kept saying to me, "You are fucking gorgeous. Do you know this? Do you know how fucking gorgeous you are?" I'm just like, and I'm just like, this is uncomfortable because my man right here. And Fred is just sitting there drinking his screwdriver, because that's all he drinks. He's just sitting there drinking his screwdriver like, damn right, she's gorgeous. Mm-hmm. Nothing flapped him because I mean, he knew how I was. When I'm in a relationship with someone, I'm in a relationship with someone. There really is nobody else. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, there are male groupies too. But I just thought that was really funny. How shocked Kamau and Ear Doctor were. And it helped me kind of trigger these memories of, so so much. It was fun. It really was a lot of fun. Going to metal shows. I remember one particular show at the University of Maryland. um I can't remember the name of the uh um I guess it's a basketball arena, or at least the old one. And that was the first time I saw Testament. And it was a triple, it was a 3 or 4 metal band thrash metal show. It was like Testament, Nuclear Assault, Anthrax. I loved Anthrax, especially when they did the collaboration with Public Enemy. And Public Enemy at the 930 Club was the other show, one of the other noteworthy shows where they had the wall sweating. It was fucking amazing. Um, but Anthrax and it was Testament, Nuclear Assault, Anthrax, and a fourth band that I cannot remember because they weren't that good, probably. um, and oh my God, I just remembered who I went with. Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay. So I went with a guy who I was friends with, who I was friendly with. Fred and I had broken up. Um, and this guy and Rob and I were friends, not Rob Zombie. This is another guy. This is another guy. So this is Rob. Um, and we had been friends for a long time, and he had always liked me, but I had been with Fred. And when Fred and I broke up, he was very respectful. He waited like 6 months, and he was like, "So, can we get together now or no?" And I was really just like, I really don't want to be in a relationship with anybody else, because my little heart was broken, and all this kind of stuff, because I just swore that I was going to get married to Fred, and we were going to have little punk babies, and yeah, all that kind of stuff. That didn't happen for reasons. So yeah, I was heartbroken. And Fred and Rob was really cool. He stayed my friend, and I was just like, look, I really don't want to be in a relationship with anybody. I'm not. I'm in no mood for it. And he's like, I don't really want a relationship either. And I was like, but so what? So you're oh oh, okay. And just to let you know, I think these things are funny, and I think they are. I just really like the idea of just, oh my God, what? No, no, not swing. No, we were not exclusive. That's about all I'll say about it. If you can't figure that out at this point. But yeah, so I just remembered who I went to the show with, and I just thought that was hilarious that I had actually forgotten that I'd gone to the show with Rob, my special friend. Uh, so I really just like the idea of demystifying whatever it is people think of me. I don't like when people kind of make heroes out of people, and oh, this person is so. Look, man, I done some things. I have, as somebody said in the remix chat the other day, I have lived, baby. I have lived. You feel me? And yeah, I'm not telling you half of what I lived. But anyway, so never. This is as close as you're gonna get. This is as close as you're gonna get to it. This There will be no tell-all memoir book. The book I publish will not be a tell-all memoir, but a book is coming at some point, but not the tell-all. This is as close as you're gonna get. So I go to the show, and it was the first time I saw Testament, and I that was seeing the lead singer for Testament was the first time I'd seen an indigenous person, like literally outside of history books or studying history, because the lead singer of Testament is this guy named Chuck Billy. He's like 6 feet tall, and he's Native American. And the songs, a lot of Testament's songs had themes that related to indigenous genocide and the injustice committed against Native Americans. And that's where I kind of started to read about some of that history. Like I'm listening to the songs and reading the lyrics and like, oh damn, did that really happen? And go to read the history and like, oh, that really did happen. Shit. So that's why I remember that show so much, was because like, wow, that dude is Native American. And like, do I know any Native American? I don't think I do. Why don't I? Huh. And then kind of finding you know, finding out more history of indigenous people through a metal band. Go figure. That's just yeah. And then I found out that Testament is still touring. That was the show that a friend of mine wanted me to go to in Baltimore a while ago, a couple of years ago, and I was like, I I don't love you that much. I don't love anybody that much to go to anybody's concert anymore. No, no. So yeah, that's that. So that's kind of like a little bit of my um I don't know what to call them. My young, wild, and free years, I guess. Um, I think I probably, other than it being a lot of fun, those years I think helped me deal a lot with my self-esteem issues, because even though there were not a lot of black people in the punk scene, and there were certainly less black people in the metal scene for sure. Um, being one of a few or the only black always put me in a position to stand up for myself at some point. And I never really had to do a lot of that in the punk scene because we didn't deal with a lot of racism. Um, that was just not tolerated because, as I have said before, the DC punk scene was highly politicized, very politicized. And fighting against racism was one of the political kind of planks of the political movements within the punk scene. So every once in a while, racist skinheads would show up at some of the punk shows, and they'd get their asses kicked because, they want to start trouble with me, or, me and one of the other two or three black folks who were there. And then my ex-boyfriend would show up to my defense, and he was, 5'10" and 260 with motorcycle boots and studs and chains. Yeah. So, um, yep, exactly. Um, I experienced more of it in the metal scene. Like there was not a Metallica show that I did not go. That there was not a Metallica show that I went to where I did not get at least the look from white people, like the "What are you doing here?" look, and it's that. Absolutely. I do know about the straight edge movement because 7 Seconds was huge in DC. Kevin Seconds, the lead singer of 7 Seconds, one of the coolest guys in the world, nicest guy, extremely, extremely nice guy. So yeah, the straight edge movement was pretty big. Thomas Squibb, the lead singer for Beefeater, my ex-boyfriend's band, he was straight edge, and so was the original bass player, whose name escapes me right now for some reason. I don't know why, but it does. Yeah, charge that to the dialysis and the hormonal changes. That's what it is. But yeah, straight edge in the punk scene was no alcohol, no drugs. Some folks took it to other levels. They were vegetarians or vegans. Thomas Squibb was very interesting in that he 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 didn't have sex, and God bless him. And everybody in the band knew when he masturbated, because every time he would masturbate, he would shave his head as penance. Because so every time he showed up to rehearsal with a shaved head, we knew he had jerked off, just succumbed to the temptation. And so one of those stories that only I could do. So yeah, so being like the only or one of the few blacks in the metal scene, particularly in the thrash metal scene and the grunge scene, was really interesting, because you did have to deal with, I did have to deal with more overt racism, and thankfully nobody ever put their hands on me. But there were a couple of times where I felt threatened, but the people I were with always stepped in and were like, we're seriously willing to throw down, and get arrested because you looked out for each other. That was just a part of the culture. You looked out for each other. And I will end with this. I mean, unless y'all don't want me to end. Because if y'all are having a good time, then I got more. But because we just relaxing and reminiscing today, and I'm going to try to answer your questions. So the people I hung out with, I have never been big on drugs. This is not a judgment. It really is not. It was just, I'm a control freak. I like structure, order. I need timetables. I need plans. I like lists. I like to be on time. Drives me nuts when I'm late. I like to be in control. So the idea of not being in control of myself, I couldn't do it. I think the most I ever did was I did smoke weed a couple of times, and I was like, okay, what's happening? Nothing much. This is okay. And I think I've always been so tightly wound that it's always been kind of hard for me to relax. So when I smoked a little weed, it was like, well, this is not enough. you know? So my thing was alcohol. And I would drink to the point where once I stood up, if I couldn't, like, walk in a straight line, then that was enough. I had real limits. And that's not, saying that that's not a judgment or a virtue. That's just how I am. But when my mom died in 1996, the alcohol became a problem because I drank my grief, and I had a real problem with alcohol for a while. But beer and Jack and Coke and Jägermeister were my thing. So I never did drugs a lot, but a lot of the people I hung out with did. So, I told y'all about, the way the Lord made me and the extra stuff that he gave me. So they've always been that way. I've always been, yes, they've also, my friends would put all of their contraband into my brassiere as we were going into concerts, because back then they would pat you down before you went into, especially the metal shows, because people like to make a big deal. I always thought it was funny how people made a big deal about go-go shows and, oh my god, all the violence, and hip hop and rap shows, all the music is so violent, and I'm like, I'm going to metal shows where they've got metal detectors and pat downs and going through your bags, and like, do you know what the white people are doing? Do y'all know what the whites are doing over here? Because they show enough are out here fighting in the shows and throwing shit at the stage when they're pissed off at the band. Oh my God. Riots breaking out at the concert. The whites went, what, they were wild. Wild. And that was outside of the mosh pit. So all of my friends would put their contraband in my bra, because who's gonna search me? Ain't nobody gonna search these. all of the employees, all the security at the places were usually black. And they saw me coming and they were like, come on in, sis. You like this? More than once. Oh my God, you like this kind of music? Yep. Come on in, sis. So, that black girl magic, black privilege paid off. I guess it did exist. I don't know. At least that one time. Well, it was more than one time. It was like 30 times. So yeah, I did that. And then once we got in, everybody got past their stuff out. Yes, ma'am. My man was Fred the Freak Smith. Yes, ma'am. Yep. And I used to say I'm glad there are no pictures of me from that time, but now I'm actually not. But there actually is one picture of me from that time. There is. And I'm going to show it to you. Let me see if I can find it. Yep, there it is. I wonder how much this thing is worth now. Oh, it's sold. Let me see. Do they have, is it the, no, I just need to see this picture, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it. I hope so. Wait, nope, you're not going to be able to see that, but let me see. I'm working on it. I'm working on finding a good picture for you to see, the one picture of me that exists during this time. Yep, here we go. This is the inside cover of Beef Eater's seminal album, House Burning Down. This is Thomas Squip right here. Dougie Bird was the drummer. This is Fred's cousin Leon. This is my ex-boyfriend, Fred Freak Smith, before the braids. And this is me. Can I move it over? Are you going to move over for me? I don't think you're going to, but okay. So these are all of the people who contributed to this album in some way. So yeah, that's me. So yeah, I'm actually glad this exists, because this literally is the only picture of me and Fred in the same place during this time. Because this was before cell phones, and you just did shit, and people didn't take a picture of everything that they were doing. And the reason I'm on this album cover is because I was in the studio with them pretty much every day while they were recording. And the studio was in the Discord house. And Tomas said, we need backup singers for this song. And I was just sitting there, with somebody else. And, Fred was like, they can do it. And I'm like, who they can do what? and so we ended up singing backup on, which song was it? Now I can't remember which song it was. I have to look at the discography to see what song it was, because I honestly cannot remember which one it was. But yeah, sang backup on one of the songs on Beefeater's album, and that's why I'm on the inside cover. And yes, that was Fred Freak Smith. Really tragic story. And I think this kind of had implications for the way I kind of thought about other things later on in life. And when I tell you the story, you'll understand what I mean. After Fred and I broke up, I was like, 22 at the time. I was very young. I was 22. No, there are none of those. There are no royalties. Nope. So Fred and I broke up because he began to have he began to use drugs more than recreationally. And I said something about it. I said, I'm really worried, something, I'm really worried about you. I think you're doing too much of this. He didn't like it. And he broke up with me. That's literally how we broke up. That literally why we broke up. Broke my heart. I thought my life was going to end. Oh, it was terrible. So a very short time after we broke up, and we had been together for almost 4 years. Very soon after we broke up, all of our friends were telling me, first of all, everybody was shocked that we broke up, and half of our friends were angry with him. And that created some really messy events when we would go out, because we had the same friends. I still went to the same places. I went to the same shows. He was there. I was there. It was very, very messy for a little while. He met someone else, got married, so I was told, to this white woman who was like this hippie. And then somebody pointed her out to me, and I was like, her? Huh? So they move away. They moved to California, where he plays in a few bands in LA. And then I had to tell our friends to just please stop telling me about him. Stop, because people were, oh, did you hear Fred? Oh, did you hear this? Oh, there's like, and finally I was just like, please stop. Maybe like a year or two later, our friends are still telling me stuff. And I'm like, would you stop telling me about what Fred is doing? I don't care anymore. And obviously, if he wanted me to know, he would contact me, because I haven't left where I moved when we broke up. So he's going on with his life. I'm going to just stop. Because our friends were like hoping that we would get back together. And I'm like, what do you think I'm going to do? Go to California and get him? That's not, no. So I didn't hear anything else about Fred until I saw a clip of him on The Tonight Show, where Jay Leno, I think it was either Jay Leno or when Jimmy Fallon took over to have those man on the street like quizzes, and it was him. And it was some thing that they did. Yes, man. Yes. Um, unstylish and unkempt too. Um, and so I'm watching this, and I only watched it because I just happened to be up that night and nothing else is on. I'm like, oh, let's see. And I think a band that I wanted to see was performing live. Oh, uh, uh, doggone it, something on the radio. Wolf Like Me. Who? What was the name of that damn band? Uh, uh, TV on the Radio. That's what it was. A song had come out by this band called TV on the Radio, and the song was called Wolf Like Me. And I love that song, still do. And they were playing on the Tonight Show that night, and I wanted to see them perform that show. So that's why I was watching. There's so much revolved around music. It's just weird. Um, so I just happened to see that he is. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Fred. And he was not looking well. He was not looking well at the time. And I was like, man, that really sucks. But and so then I didn't hear anything else. Didn't hear anything else until um what year was it? Uh 2017, when friends told me that Fred had died in Los Angeles. And this is actually, they sent me this article from NPR. Excuse me. It wasn't 2017. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. It was 2017. Excuse me. I'm sorry. So this is him. And that was actually one of his favorite guitars. That was his favorite guitar strap. He was found, his body was found in a park in Las Palmas, in San Fernando, in LA on August 8th, 2017. He had basically succumbed to mental illness and addiction, and he was homeless. So, and by that time, I was married because I had met Mr. Abdulshahid Lukman in 2012, end of 2011. And we got married in 2013. And so he knew about Fred, you know. And so Abdus was he was the cuddly, affectionate, jealous type. Not like the psychotic, abusive, jealous type. He was just like the, you know, this my girl now, and there are no comebacks. You know, you can't. I hope he actually told me one time, he's like, look, I'm not friends with any of my exes. I hope you ain't friends with none of yours, because no. And I'm like, that's why they're exes. I'm not friends with my exes. That is why they are exes, and that's just how I've always been. And so when Fred died, I was married to Abdus, and I was shocked at how hurt I was. I mean, I cried for days. I cried for, and Abdus, despite all of his weird jealousy, he was so understanding and supportive. And I was just like, I'm so sorry. I do not know why I'm so sad. And he was like, Jacquie, because you loved the man for 4 years. Of course you're sad he died like that. Of course you are. You loved him for 4 years. You knew him when he was at his absolute best. You knew the real him. And for him to end like this, that's what's breaking your heart. I had no idea that years later I would go through something similar with my Abdus. So I had this very, very weird, for a time, like, oh my God, I'm cursed. I'm cursed. You know, I'm cursed to meet all of these, you know, these black men these talented, brilliant black men with tragic stories, because Fred Smith was a talented brother. And he was smart as hell. He was incredibly intelligent. Went to seminary, thought he wanted to be a priest at one time, almost graduated seminary and decided, nope, want to play music. learned to play the piano, learned to play the drums, learned to play guitar, really loved guitar, and found his niche in the punk world in DC. He was in a couple of funk bands, but he really liked, the harder, faster stuff. So found his way in the punk bands in DC, and I always felt like his talent was far above the bands he played in. He was in Beefeater at first, and then he was in Strange Boutique afterward. Um, an incredibly, incredibly talented Black man. But while I was with him, I saw kind of, I didn't know what it was then, but I saw the beginnings of, maybe not the beginnings, but the indications that there was turmoil there. And I'm just thinking, he's just a, struggling, tortured artist, because, that's what you think. But, he was coping with his own kind of issues stemming from family trauma, really horrible relationship with his father. His father was not a nice man. Not estranged from his mother, but separated from his mother. He and his mother were very, very close. And she worked for the State Department. She was stationed in Africa, and he missed her terribly. And I think the more he got into using cocaine, the more that was, I realized later on, that was probably a coping mechanism for things that he was not able to deal with his losing his grasp on his mental health. That I can't help but look at it any other way in retrospect, right? And then I meet Abdus, a brilliant, brilliant man. His own struggles with substance abuse, his own struggles with bipolar disorder that was never diagnosed until a few years before he died. So he never got the benefit of the medications that really would have helped, and understanding how the bipolar disorder fed the inability to stay clean. And I did a couple of shows about that, explaining the science behind all of that the medical community has known for 20 years. Well, more than 20 years, since the 80s. And that knowledge has not translated into better, more comprehensive mental and substance abuse help for people who need it, because the substance abuse system in this country is a for-profit venture, just like healthcare is. And mental health is nestled into the healthcare system that is for profit. So people who seek treatment don't get the comprehensive treatment that they really need to really beat addiction in the first place. And if they have a co-occurring mental disorder, they don't get any support for their mental disorder to manage and control that, to increase their chances of staying clean. So people relapse over and over again, and sometimes they don't survive those relapses. And in the process of those relapses, of your body being put through the rigor that the drugs put your body through, you develop other health issues like an enlarged heart. And that is ultimately what killed Abdus-Shahid Luqman. A stroke triggered by a stroke that triggered an intracerebral aneurysm that was all triggered by his failing enlarged heart after the last relapse that he didn't survive. So for a long time, especially after Abdus died, I really just like, oh my God, I'm cursed. How is it that why do I, another one of my boyfriends, I've only had like 4 in my entire life. So, Another one of my boyfriends was a recovering alcoholic. I struggled with alcoholism when my mom died. Um, and then I went back to my therapist. Actually, I got a new therapist. No, I didn't. I went back to my therapist that I started going to a few years ago. I went back to my therapist and I updated her on everything that happened. And I'm telling her I'm cursed. And and she's like, so you don't think that the reason you encounter these things is because this is a problem that impacts our people more than we'd like to admit? You think it's personal, that you personally are cursed? And she said to me, you really think the universe is centered around you like that? And I was like, I think that hurt my feelings, but I think I get it. This is not about me. This is a systemic issue. And here I am, a fucking organizer against this capitalist, white supremacist, patriarchal, settler colonial system, and I didn't figure that out. I didn't make those connections. I'm not cursed. There's nothing wrong with black men. It's the system. This system does this to people. That's why we see these kinds of problems prevalent in certain communities among black people and brown people more. Not because there's something wrong with us, because it's the oppression, stupid. It's the system. And particularly black men, nobody has sympathy for black men. That was Abdus's whole thing. And I will end on this. Abdus was very close to using his show Waters of Healing to talk about his struggles with substance abuse and mental health issues and family trauma and other things, because he really felt like he created Lukman Nation for that purpose, for us to be the voices for our people who feel like we have no fucking voice because nobody listens to us. Nobody listens to our problems. Nobody believes us when we say that we're hurting, that we're struggling. Nobody believes us when we say that the system is unjust and unfair. So a lot of us just stop talking about it because we're tired of not being listened to. We're tired of being dismissed. We're tired of being gaslit. And by keeping it all in, it just adds to our stress and our trauma. So Abdus wanted us in Lukman Nation, the two of us, for different reasons, for different things, to say the things that a lot of our people are afraid to say, are uncomfortable to talk about, are uncomfortable with talking about, but who would appreciate hearing it from us. And I don't want it. It was never his thing to be like, oh, we are the sages or we have all this wisdom. That was never his or our purpose. It's not that we're so wise. It's because we have lived. We have these experiences. And we can tell you what it feels like. He wanted to tell people what it feels like to want to be clean, to work hard, to stay clean, to be sober for 7 years. And to think that he had his life on track and one shitty thing could happen. And for some reason, he couldn't keep his brain from going to, well, you know what's going to make you feel good, man? He and I talked about these things. And he was honest and open with me about how broken his struggle with addiction made him feel. And I had to listen to my husband, who I thought was, you couldn't tell me nothing about that man. Can't nobody ever say nothing wrong about that man, ever. I had to sit there and listen to my husband tell me that he felt like nothing because he didn't understand why he couldn't stay clean when he wanted to so badly. And he didn't understand sometimes why he didn't want to live when everything in his life was so good. He had me, he had a good life. He didn't He didn't understand what he was struggling with his own brain. And when he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, he understood it a little better. So he wanted to talk about these things, but the damage was done. And that's just the truth of the matter. That really is just the truth. This system, I know for a fact from personal experience, this capitalist, settler colonial, white supremacist, patriarchal system killed two good Black men who I knew personally. It has killed so many others. This same system killed his son through medical apartheid, health insurance that was too expensive for him because he didn't get it through his job. So he died of kidney failure, the very same disease that I am fighting right now. So, and I have to tell you that in all of my experiences as a punk and in the metal scene, I know so many people who struggled with addiction, who lost that battle, overdosed, struggled with mental health issues, and took their lives, committed suicide. I don't know a whole lot of people who were dealing with drug use, heavy drug use at the time, who survived that battle. A few did, but most did not, because the help for them was not there. That wasn't because they were bad people. That wasn't because they made bad decisions. That's because the system killed them, because they were working class and poor people that the system uses up and throws away. So I'm sorry to have ended this great retrospective, this relaxing and reminiscing on such a sour, such a low note, but I actually don't think it's a low note anymore. Because see, Abdus's legacy continues to fuel my organizing, still does. That's why Lukman Nation could never have ended. That's why I could never have stopped doing this after he died. Because it would have been a grave dishonor to the legacy that he started when he birthed Lukman Nation out of that fantastic brain of his. So thank y'all very much for sticking with me tonight, for hanging out with me tonight, relaxing and reminiscing here on the People's Power Hour in Lukman Nation. I appreciate you. I love you all so much. And Abdus loves you too. He's always here with me, protecting me, watching over me. He loves you too. Thanks a lot, y'all. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. And as always, a luta continua. The struggle continues. But if we keep fighting, Victoria acerta. Victory is certain. Peace.